Okay, now. So we're picking up now from where we left last time. The first thing it says is you should set your time zone. You have a list of the time zones here. If you follow this link here, and after that, here it says how to set the time zone. There you have the list of time zones, and here you can find your proper time zone and the code, the country code that you have to put. This time zone that you have to put, you're gonna put it in your app where it says time zone. I put mine here and just made the changes and save. After that, okay, it says um, here you'll see that there are a list of installed apps in the settings files. Any installed apps that you have here is going to be registered for migrations. Okay, so when you have a new app like us, Pulse, we will have to include it here in migrations in the list of installed apps, so that the migrations and the changes that we make in the models here, in the models, because we're going to start working in the models now, and any change that you do here, Python, Django is going to know that you're changing things and that you're making upgrades, because you will declare that app installed here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is migrate all the information that these apps have. This is the admin app, the authorization app, the content type, session, messages, and static files. So when we run now, each of these apps have a specific migration for them, but the database has nothing for now, empty. So if we want something to be stored here, we first have to run the migrations. Remember that when we run the um, this command, run server, when we run the server, we get this alert because you have unapplied migrations. Those correspond to these apps right here, which they're specific migrations. So if we run the migrations and we run the command migrate, all these migrations get applied to our database. And from now on, all these applications made its impact in the database right here. You say, there's nothing, but if we refresh it, there you have all the tables from these groups of apps that are here. Okay? So now, apparently, the server should be running better now. Not better, but with the database of the table. So after you run the migration, everything got installed, and here it says now we have to start creating our own models. Okay, and the thing with the models is that it's like a representation of how you're going to store data in your database. So here you have, for example, we're going to create for the polls a question and a choice for those questions, and we're going to link these two classes with a foreign key. So the choices are going to be related to the question. So each question will have choices, and each choice corresponds to one question. Okay, so it says in our app poll we're going to create two models, question and choice. A question that has a publication date, a choice that has two fields, the text of the choice and a vote. Each choice is associated with a question. Okay, so let's create this. Let's copy this data and paste it into our models, inside polls, into our models. There we go. And you got your models created. Okay, so you're gonna save this. I'm gonna save this as well. So what now? Here it's explaining how the fields are organized, and the only field that acquired a human real name is the data published. Instead of represented, the pub date is going to be expressed like this in our database. Many of these fields have, you can read this after to learn a little bit of how the different fields are stored. For many of them, for example, for the character field, you're gonna have a required argument, which is the max length of the field, and other fields do have different different way, different arguments, required arguments. For example, when you make a foreign key, you have to specify what kind of, which the model that it is related to. And the other thing that you have to relate is what happens when you delete a question. So what happens if you delete an entry here? What happens with the choices? So here is the specification that on delete, you have to cascade. It means if you delete a question, all the choices that are related to that question will get deleted as well. Okay. So how do you activate a model? The way of activating a model is a small bit of model code gives Django a lot of information. Okay. So it's going to be able to create a table and to create a Python database access API for accessing the questions and the choice objects. Okay. So the first thing you have to is to tell Django that you installed and you're using a new app. So if you make changes in the models, Django is going to know because it's going to look here if any change was made to these apps here. So we're going to add to the list of installed apps, not this, we're going to add the Pulse app Pulse config. Okay, Pulse app Pulse config. So when you add your application like this, once you create it, now if you make migrations for the Pulse application, it's going to register that changes have been made in the models file. Okay, so if I run here, I will run the Python manage.py make migrations for the Pulse app. So it should register my changes. Okay, there's a error here. No module name Pulse app. Okay, let's see what happened. Oh, typo. Apps. Pulse apps. Okay, so now it should work. There you go. So here we created the first migration file for our app. So inside the migrations, now we should find an initial migration, which is 001. And here you can see that this file got created. And here all the information that Django passed to parse the SQL and create a database table. So this is like, you're going to see that what we created here from our models, Django automatically added here an ID with an auto increment function. Okay, so we didn't have to take care of that. We didn't have to tell Django that we wanted to have a primary key there, but Django knows that, and they do it. It's doing it here. So add in the fields, it added an ID field, which is auto created, which is primary key, and the variable's name, which is the ID of this model, like right here. Okay, then it added the fields that we needed to add, which is these two, and then in the other migrations the same thing. Okay, the ID here, which is a primary key for the choices. And this is the relation. See here, you have the relation to the question table. On delete, it's going to delete on cascade, and this is the relation that it has. The relation is to Pulse and inside Pulse questions. Okay, so everything that will be created perfectly. But the thing is, with this, the migration got created, but it didn't impact the database yet. So if I update my database, you will see that there's nothing going on here. Everything is just the same. So now what we have to do, we have to run the migrations. Okay, so py manage.py migrate. Let's see if here they ask us to do anything else. Okay, here what you see is that you can take a peek of what is the code that will be created to make the changes in this SQL. So if you want, you can run this code right here before we run the migration itself. We can run this code, and here you will see what is it that Django is going to do with the orders that we just gave him. So it's going to create a table called polls questions. It's going to create a table called poll choice. And inside them, it will create the different fields or columns it would be to create in each table. Okay, so I'm guessing now we should migrate. There you go. Now we have to migrate our changes, and now the migrations will impact our database. Everything got carried out correctly. So now if we update here, we should see, there you go, 2 more tables inside our database, which are the polls choice. Here you have it. This is the ID, auto increment, choice text, votes and questions, and the question itself with question and the publication date. Okay, so now it's explained with the API. What is this? There's a way of talking to your models, talking to your database through a shell, like as if you were using a terminal inside Python. Remember when you go, for example, when you go to your command prompt here, this is outside the project, okay? If you run Python, you remember that you open a shell, and here you can play with Python, right? You can assign a variable, say a equals 1, b equals 2, and if I say a plus b equals 3. So if we do this and we exit this terminal, okay, there, and I run the command again, and I say what is a, it's going to have a traceback error because it doesn't remember what a is. Once you close this terminal, everything goes back to normal. Okay, so there's no persistence. You will hear about when someone talks about architecture, software architecture, you're gonna listen that they talk about persistent layer. The persistence layer is when you talk about information, data that persists through the program. That is the database, because you can connect to the database and retrieve information from there, and you have a persistence in the information, and it's not that everything gets deleted once you close the terminal. Okay, so I'm going to delete this, and let's go back here. You can open a shell inside your program, and the thing is that this shell is in contact with all your files. So I can create here a variable. Okay, you see it says we can import models, for example. Okay, so let's import our models from polls.models. We want to import our 2 models, which is question and choice, and that command ran correctly. So now if I put if I want to know, for example, here I want to know all the objects that were created inside the question model, it will drop the query set, which is our query, just made a query like this. Query set is returned to an empty list because we didn't create any objects yet. So now we're going to create our first object inside our model, our first instance. Okay, so with this command, we are saying assign to the variable q a new model created where question text is what's new. I'm going to put here the model for you. So question text is what's new, and the publication date is your time zone now. Okay, so oh, I forgot to import the time zone here. There you go. Try it again. So now the first item got created. So if I print this, we have our first object, and if I call for this code again, if I put the question and to list all the objects, we should return. Okay. I don't know here's why it didn't work, because I didn't save the object to the database. See, so I created the object. You would say, okay, but if I put q, the object got created. Yeah, but it didn't get stored inside our database. So in order to store the object to the database, you have to save it. Once I save it and I run again question, there you go. Here your object appeared. Okay, So you have it now. So now you can access your object and everything that's inside that object once it gets saved to the database. For example, you can quote ask for its ID. You can ask for the question text, so it will say what's new. So you can ask for the publication date, okay, and you can change. It says you can change the value by changing the attributes and then calling save. For example, what's new instead of what's new, I could change the Q question text to it's with a to what's up, okay, and with that, if I now run the question text, it should return what's up and not what's new, which was the first thing when we created the object what was assigned to that value. Okay, so now it says, wait a minute, this name isn't helpful to represent the object. So we can create a more readable, a more friendly name for this object. For example, we could say that anytime that we call the object Q, instead of giving this, it could give us directly the name of the question itself, like the question text. So you can set up that in your model. You can do it by calling this string method, this dunder string. This is the string representation of your object, of your instance. So when you copy this, when we put this here, is how you want your object to be named. If I put something like, for example, if I put something like this, so if I assign here, if I assign here the name for the, here it says you could assign something dynamically, but I could return just, for example, some object in question model. And if I put this and I create more than one object, every object is gonna get the same name, the same string representation name. Okay, so for example, if I, okay, but actually this is not gonna work because after doing this, you have to update your models, I'm guessing. Oh no, you would just have to reset this. So let's reset this. And now we save, our model is saved. So let's execute it again. The Python shell. Let's import the models from polls.models import question and choices. Oh, choice. Right, there you go. So now, if I say, if I query, let's make a query. Let's say question dot object dot all. So there you see. Now the name is, for every object that I created, it says it's some object in question model. But if I want this to have a specific name for that object, what I could do is I could change this and tell them to return the question text. So here it would be a name specific for that object itself because we're accessing one of its attributes. Okay, so let's change this. Let's create, exit, run it again, run it. No, just created from polls models import question and choice. And now if we repeat this, questions object all, now you see the first object that gets exposed here is the only one that we have in our database, and it says what's new. So why are we seeing this? Why do we have persistence even though I closed the terminal and started again? Because we have a persistent in our database. We're accessing our database. Every time we ask questions here, we're retrieving information from our database because we saved that. Okay, so let's see what says here. Okay, so now you can query and it will show up like this. Let's add the second one because there's one for choice as well. Okay, here, there you go. And okay, it's changing something here. They want to custom. They want to create. It's suggesting to create a method inside the question. We have to import this first. Daytime, and import time zone as well. Sorry. There you go. And create time zone. So here you will create a new method to see whether the object, the publication or question was published recently. Okay, so here you will return the publication date. When you put an operand like this or an operator like this, you know that the return here will be true or false. So if the publication date is greater or equal than the time zone, subtracting the 1 day, a time delta of 1 day, you know that this will return true because it's a close to your actual date publication time. Okay, so this is if the publication was made 1 day from now, 1 day before or 1 day back, it will be published recently. If it was published 3 days ago, then this will return false. Okay, so let's copy this and let's put it inside the question. Once we created this, let's go play with the shell now. And actually, we have to restart it. Let's exit and run the shell again. Shell. Okay, there we go. So it says now, this we already did. Django provides a rich database lookup API that's entirely driven by keyword arguments. So if you can run this and it will return the same object because you can filter by ID or you can filter by anything that starts with. Okay, if you see how to take care of this, it says the question text and there's a double underscore here and the command starts with. Okay, then you can also use the end with or another keyword for filtering inside your database. Here you want to get the question that was published this year. So you can import your time zone here. You can set a variable to the current year, okay? And then you can filter, you can get the publications that has publication date. Remember that when you created this model here, time zone has, it identifies inside every part of the date that you created. So you can filter by part of the time zone. You can filter, for example, by year, okay? But if you ask for something that has not been stored yet, for example, like this, if you ask for an ID that hasn't been created, it should return an error. If you return the first, why didn't it work? Oh, because I didn't import the models. So here, let's import first from polls models import question choice. Now I run this again. This is going to return okay, and the ID2, it says that it doesn't exist. Question matching query does not exist. Okay, so to use get ID1 is the same to use primary key 1, because when you set the ID as a primary key, you can use primary key and ID as the same. Now make sure your custom model works. We already checked that. We have to check if the method is working properly. So for now, Q will be, we assign the first object to the variable Q, So this will be question object get by ID 1. We have sign, we check, that's right. And now method is available for this object. So if we run this, it will return true because it was recently published. Okay, it was published within first day, the one day. So we're here. True. Now, given question, now we want to assign choices to the question. Okay, so every object that you create inside your database with this format, it will have assigned a choice set. Even though you don't have a choice set inside your model, because there's no choice set here, but once you create a foreign key, it will create a set for this model inside your other model, okay? Because those two models are related now. So if I run the command q choice set, choice set, I don't know if it's all, because you can have more than one. So if you put this, it will return a query set, an empty query set, because there are no choices yet assigned to that object. Okay, but here it says let's create 3 choices. So for Q, for our object, let's add inside choice set. We create a choice text with not match and votes turn into 0. So this is the first one. There you go, got created properly. This is the second one that will be created properly as well. Oh, wait. Now, there you go, sky. Now, if we call for our query set, our choice set, it will return both objects that just got created. And the third one, you're going to create it through a variable. Okay, so inside C, inside choice, which would be the variable C, you're going to create the same thing. Okay, so let's copy this and let's stick it here. There you go. So now you got 3 choices that just got created. Okay, so now through the API you can access, for example, for C, which is the question that it has assigned, and it says the question assigned or choice is a choice assigned to the question what's new, because that's the relation that exists between the two models. Okay, and if you want to know, we already did this, and you can run any other methods, for example the count method to choice set, for example count. It's a regular method, a Python method that you can use to count how many items are inside that list. You can filter as well, and here's the way that you can filter inside, and you can delete items as well. You can delete this object from the object, the other object from the question object. Okay, perfect. Introducing Django admin. So here we're gonna run inside Django admin. If we go to this path, let's go roll back a little bit. We're going to go here to the urls.py inside the project. Check that everything's running properly. Okay. When you go here, you see that we created this URL and we didn't set anything yet here. We just determined the index. Remember how this worked, right? So when you create a URL like this, first Django tries to match this to every path. Once the path got that received the match, so this is a proper match. Okay, so here it matched. Then everything that is beneath it's behind this bar here after the match, it will be redirected. It will into the polls URLs. So you come here, and if there's nothing here, then we have a match here. Okay, match. So this view will be displayed this view will be displayed. So you're gonna go to views here, and inside views is going to run this view right here. Okay, so you are returning an HTTP response to that request. Okay, so you can see that in your project there's another path, which is the admin path. This admin path that you have right here, we're gonna run it in the command. So we have to run the server first. Let's exit this. Let's run the shell, the project py manage.py run server. And once you run the server here, we should see oh my god, localhost. Okay, we didn't assign anything to the main site. So actually that empty space is not connecting to anything, but we do have an admin site. What happened here? No time zone. Oh, okay. So I screwed up with my time zone. Let's go back here. Let's just put here. I don't know if it was US or what. I think it was like this. There we go. There you go. Okay. So here we got to this site, okay, with the Django administration site. But how do you create a user here? Because we would go to a site and we have the option to create a user, but this doesn't work like this in Django. Okay, so you have to set your current user, your first user, your first admin user, you create it from your program. Okay, so we're going to run our command python manage.py, and you will see that here you have a lot of commands that you can run. Okay, so one here is to create a super user. So that's what we're going to run now. Python manage.py create super user. When we do this, we're going to have the option to put a username, which I put Tato, then email address, which doesn't have to be a real email address, and a password. Okay, so my password is going to be really simple, and I'm told that it's really simple. If I want to keep it, I put yes. Remember that when you type down your password, nothing's going to be, you're not going to see any input, but you have to, but know that you're writing something. Okay, so my super user got created. I'm going to run my server now. Nope. Sorry. My super user got created. I run my server now. And if everything goes okay, I can check first if my super user got created. I'm going to go to the users table, and I see that there's one user here. Okay. So this is my user. So it should work now. I should be able to log in the admin site. When I go in, there we go. But you will notice here that this is where all the information from your program gets exposed. You can see, I can see the users here, but you could argue that now there's not all the information is being exposed here, because where are the questions and where are the choices that I created? So in order to see that, you have to tell Django that you created a model and that you want to add it to the admin side. And that's why you have an admin .py file here, because this is how you tell Django that you want your models included here. Okay, so that's what's going to happen now. And you can see here where you create your admin, whatever you want, you enter, you logged in, and here is where you tell that you want to register your models here. Okay, so you have to import your models. You want to import the question model from the model file, and you want to add it to the admin side. Okay, so if I save this, let's save this and save this, and there we go. So now if I update my server, I should see now the question models that it's inside the polls app. And if I go inside the question models, we should see the first input of that model itself. Okay, So let's move on here. Okay, it says explore free admin functionality. You'll see that here you got some like building um, um, JavaScript functionalities. Okay, so that for example, if you click today here, when you have a field that created with the datetime, you can add it get automatically added to the option to scroll to display this calendar or to set the date today or the time. But the question that the character fills, you just get an empty space, and you can see that you have many options here, like save and create another one. So you can create actually in your file in your admin panel. You can create as many entries as you want. This would be like a GUI to work with the shell, something like what we've been doing recently with playing with the shell and the API. So this is another way to do it. We can just save and create another one. You're gonna get an empty form, and here you could put the question text, for example, how are you today? The date published is today, and the time is now. And if I save that, here you have a new question added. Okay, and if I want, I mean, when you do this, it get automatically stored in your database. So if I now go to my program, if I exit, I'm sorry, if I run the command manage.py and I open the shell, if I import my models from polls.models import question, and if I run a query set and I say, okay, give me in queue the questions, question object all. What happened here? Question had no objects. Question. Oh, typo. Question of. Oh my God. Sorry, guys. There you go. Question object all. So now, if I run this, here's it. This is my second item that I stored using the admin site. Okay, so there you know. Now you have two methods on how you can input things in your database. You can do it through the admin side, or you can do it through the shell. Of course, later we're going to learn how to add it through your site itself. Okay, so I think that this is enough for now. You can read through the documentation with more detail if you want, but this would be like the second part of the Django documentation tutorial. Okay, so we'll see you in the next time.